Young boy came back like they left him for dead.
What's good, Double Jelly Gang, you know what I'm saying? And I'm back with a video, let's go. Today, I'm finna be reacting to using an iPhone 6 in 2020. Yes, sir. Now, y'all know, back in school when the iPhone 6 wave was popping, you was either getting your phone stolen, you was stealing the phone, you was trying to get the phone unlocked, something, bro. Something had to do with the 6, cause, bro, 6 was popping. But now, it's 2020, fam. So, things getting old, bro. So, you can see what it's like using an iPhone 6 in 2020. Let's go.
The iPhone 6 and 6 Plus are the best-selling smartphones of all time, and were supported from 2014 until late last year. Now they're stuck on iOS 12 forever. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're taking a look at the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. How do they hold up in 2020? I personally used the iPhone 6 for about 6-ish months, around 2016, 2017, before switching to the 6S. I liked this phone quite a bit, but the 6S really felt like an upgrade, even though it was only a year newer. That being said, the iPhone 6 was a phone that was massively successful, thanks to Apple finally giving in and making a big phone, something people had been clamoring for years. It's funny because while the iPhone 6 is big, at least compared to the 5S, that was its only real upgrade. The overall hardware is very similar to the 5S, and while yes, it technically has a newer processor, they really aren't that different. That's why the 2014 iPhone 6 is stuck on iOS 12, same as the 2013 iPhone 5S. iOS 12 runs decently on the iPhone 6, assuming you have an okay battery, but a lot of iPhone 6s haven't exactly held up well over the years. This phone has to be the most problematic iPhone of all time. From touch disease to Bendgate to getting less years of support than the 5S. I actually did a video last year about why the iPhone 6 is forever disappointing, and I stand by that. It's not like this wasn't a great phone, because it was, but it could have been so much better. And the iPhone 6S is a huge jump over it in literally every department. It's more durable, faster, better camera, and it's on iOS 13 right now. If you're curious about all the differences between the 6 and 6S, I'll actually link a comparison I did in the description below. If you're still using an iPhone 6 or 6 Plus now, it could be a good time for you to upgrade, given that it doesn't have software support anymore. But that said, that's not really what we're going to talk about today. Instead, I want to talk more about how the phone itself holds up in 2020 and whether or not this thing is still usable anymore, which, spoiler, it is usable, just not great. The iPhone 6 is not a phone you should buy, and if you're curious about what iPhone you should buy, I'll link my iPhone buying guide in the description. But now let's back up here and start by talking about the design of the iPhone 6. The iPhone 6 features an aluminum curved body that forms the thinnest iPhone ever. Since this phone, iPhones have been getting progressively thicker, as well as heavier, funnily enough, and I'd say it's likely we'll never have a form factor quite like this. It's very comfortable to hold, and while it's almost too light, I do really like it. Unfortunately, that thinness does make the phone susceptible to bending, especially on the bigger 6 Plus. Apple used a weak aluminum and it resulted in a whole bucket load of issues I won't really go over today. Basically, if you had a case on the phone, you'd probably be fine, but if you didn't, bending was and is a big possibility, and this can lead to touch disease where the touchscreen just won't work anymore. And yeah, Apple definitely should never have let that happen. The overall design of the 6 is actually one of my least favorite iPhone designs. I don't dislike the aluminum, but the plastic antenna bands going across the back isn't my thing. I think it looks cheap, especially compared to the 5S from the year before with the glass instead, but that's entirely subjective, so if you like the 6, feel free to ignore my opinion. On the front of the phone, we have either a 4.7 or 5.5 inch display, depending on whether or not you get the Plus. The screens are Retina and look pretty good. The Plus does have a slightly higher pixel density, but most won't notice any difference, and the screens are good enough. Under the display there, we have the home button with first generation Touch ID. First gen in that it's the same sensor as the iPhone 5S. It isn't great, being quite slow at times, but it's better than putting in a passcode every time, so no complaints. Let's look at the cameras. We have an 8 megapixel rear sensor on the back that can film in up to 1080p at 60 frames per second. Pictures look not so great. This is an older phone and thus the camera is older. It's not rocket science, but things have improved a lot since the iPhone 6, and so if you have this phone, you might be able to get good photos, but probably not a lot of great ones. Video is 1080p and about what you would would expect. Mediocre at best, but it should do the job. I actually did years ago a video showcasing some of the 1080p 60 video at the Vancouver Aquarium, so if you want to see that, I'll link it in the description. The iPhone 6 Plus will be a bit better than this because it has optical image stabilization, although it won't make a huge difference, and optical image stabilization has massively improved with newer iPhones. We have a 1.2 megapixel selfie camera on the front of the phone. This is not a good selfie. 1.2 megapixels is a pathetic number, and Apple should not have been shipping this even in 2014. But let's talk about the tech specs of the iPhone 6. This is not an area where the iPhone 6 excels. We're looking at Apple's A8 chipset and 1 GB of RAM. This hardware is not really much better than the 5S, and that 1 GB of RAM is the reason it's stuck on iOS 12. I wouldn't say the phone is unusable, and it actually performs surprisingly well on iOS 12. I think it's a good thing Apple didn't update it, because if they did, it would definitely feel slower. It's pretty okay as is, and right now it can run the latest versions of most apps. You can do most things with the iPhone 6, and considering that it is over 5 years old, it's impressive how well the iPhone 6 has held up. You'd be hard-pressed to find Android smartphones from 2014 that can do nearly as much as the iPhone 6. Obviously, it would have been nice if it could have gotten iOS 13, but the hardware just wasn't there, and it's kind of too bad Apple didn't make this phone better in the first place. The iPhone 6S, I think, is what the iPhone 6 should have been, and well, I mean, we got it the next year, but still, considering the iPhone 6 is the best-selling smartphone of all time, I do wish Apple put more into it. Overall, though, it doesn't hold up terribly anymore, and while it isn't on the newest version of iOS, again, you can do most things. So I think the biggest thing for a lot of people that still use this phone is going to be the battery. Battery life is not good on the smaller 6, and on the 6 Plus, it might be slightly better, but probably not by a ton. Honestly, unless you have a new battery in these phones, they're probably not performing very well for you, and I'd say it's more worth it to just buy a new iPhone than it is to replace the battery. So if that's a problem for you, well, maybe you should buy a new iPhone if you have the 6. So again, I'll link my iPhone buying guide in the description below. At the end of the day, what we have is a phone that was pretty good for the time, but isn't so good anymore. Of course, this phone isn't going to hold up spectacularly in 2020, but former iPhone 6 owners can rest easy knowing that it held up better than a lot of 2014 Android smartphones, if not all of them. Software support is something Apple does really well. And all in all, it's nice to see that the iPhone 6, for all its flaws, is completely usable if you have an okay battery and haven't bent the phone too badly. With that, I think I'm pretty much done here. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video interesting, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_.
So that was the video, y'all. Tell me what y'all think. I mean, if y'all got a 6, hey, I mean, nowadays phones cost $1,000. I got a plug. So yeah, get you a plug, then you'll be straight. But anyways, like if you like and subscribe if you want more. You dig? It's your boy Double John. I'm out.
Saved us to bullshit on like a rock, it won't change us. Behind my mans, I got a day, I won't change her. I put that shit on his mama.